Hey yo, what's good reader fam? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a books I've read recently video. I haven't done one of these in a hot minute, and by hot minute I mean I haven't done one of these in a hot month, and by that I mean more like months, month plural, but we back fam. I have around 5 books that I'm going to be talking about today, and honestly I do not have that much to say about these books. It's been a while since I have read these books, but I'm going to share my thoughts on them anyway because sharing is caring, friends. I've been really wanting to get back into doing individual book reviews. I feel like I've talked about that before in videos, and that's why it's even taking me so long to get reviews out to you guys, because I'm trying to rethink the book review format and how I want to rework them on my channel, and that process is taking a lot longer than I thought it would because I'm trying to break the format and remake it. So I probably won't end up getting any individual reviews up until 2020 because I'm a perfectionist. Anyway, today I'm going to be sharing with you some thoughts on some books that I've read not so recently. So without further ado, let's get started. The first book that I'm going to be talking about today is Pax. I read this book back in April. It has been a while. Pax is the story of a boy named Peter who has this pet fox named Pax. When Peter's father decides to enlist in the military, Peter must move in with his grandfather, and his father decides that it would be best if they just kind of left Pax behind. So what does his father do? He ends up abandoning Pax. Can I get a yikes? Because yikes! It's the story of the desperation of both the fox and Peter to return back to each other and be united again. I honestly cannot even fathom abandoning my pet. Like, ouch, it hurts my heart. Also, the thought alone is giving me separation anxiety, so I'm gonna stop talking about it now. My thoughts on Pax. I did not know going into this book that I would be impacted by it in the way that I was. I just thought, oh, this will be a fun, light little contemporary story, but to that, this book said as if. It was a book that had my mind delving deep into thought, which I guess would name this book a thought-provoking one. Thoughts were provoked by this book. There are just a lot of topics that are unpacked in this story. We have things like abandonment, we have war, we have things like found family, and they're explored in a way that really gets you thinking because they're not just brushed over. The author doesn't like flick the paintbrush on these topics. She gives us some nice word strokes. Where was I even going with that? We dive deep in with these topics. We plunge into these topics, if you will. I loved not only being able to see through the main eyes of our main character Peter, but also getting the perspective of the fox Pax. Both point of views showcased a lot of desperation and determination to get back to each other, and I just really liked reading those journeys. I will say that I feel like this book could have been condensed a little bit. I mean, it's not even that long of a book to begin with. It is a whopping 276 pages, so it's kind of on the short side, but even still, I just felt like things could have been like crunched down a little bit, smush that sandwich together a little bit more, and then stuff it in your mouth. Wow, my analogies today are just on point. I just feel like sometimes there were things that were expanded on that didn't need to be expanded on. Like, we had our main story focus, and then we had all these little story trails that we were going on. Overall, though, I did really enjoy this book, and I gave it a solid 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I have a book that I finished in May, and that is How to Make Friends with the Dark. In this book, we follow our main character, Tiger, and her whole life, it's always been her and her mother, but all that changes the second that Tiger's mother passes away. Her life is instantly turned on its head, and she must find a way to cope. She's got to figure out a way to make friends with the dark. My thoughts on How to Make Friends with the Dark. This book was sad. That's all you need to know. Next. Just kidding. I thought that maybe the deeper in I got that things might lighten up a bit, but that's a big old nope for that. It packs on layer of sadness after layer of sadness, and the next thing you know, you've ended up with this mountain of sadness. I really enjoyed the writing style showcased in this book. It was beautifully written, but it wasn't obnoxious. And this book really did the dang thing when it came to exploring the topic of grief. It really just took that topic and just broke it down in such a real and intense way. The book is written where each line is just like traced with this emotional impact, and it really gets to you. It hits you in the heart and jacks you up. It's a good old time, and by good old time I mean it's an emotion time. I do recommend this book, but I also want to make it clear that this book is heavy. It's a trip down a lane full of darkness. Sure, there are a few little itty-bitty moments of light that kind of shine through, but it's mostly overshadowed with darkness. And I mean, the title is How to Make Friends with the Dark, and that's pretty literal.
So readers beware.
I ended up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I have a book that I finished in July, and it's one that I've been meaning to get around to for the longest time, and that is All Rights Reserved. This book is about this world where every word and gesture is copyrighted. You basically have to pay up every time you speak because every word you say costs some money. I would be broke as heck in this world. And we follow our main character who decides that she is going to go up against this. She's gonna fight it. Fight, fight, fight. But how's she gonna do that without her words? Read the book and find out. My thoughts on All Rights Reserved. I unfortunately didn't love this one. It was a bit of a miss for me. I always hate when that happens. I hate when I read a book and I just don't connect with it, but man did I not connect with this book. Because of that, I don't think that I will bother picking up the sequel unless some of you guys have read the sequel and you think that it's worth it and you want to recommend it to me. By all means, let me know, but I think personally, I'm just gonna sit on the sidelines for this one. I think it was a really interesting concept and there were things about it that really surprised me and I really didn't see coming, and those things I really liked about it. But overall, I just had this really big disconnect with this book, and I think a big reason for that is because I myself just could not sink myself into this story. I kept trying to really push myself into it, being like, oh, this would be a really interesting world to live in. How would I deal with this if I was in this situation? But I also just could not get my headspace wrapped up in this world. Not that I needed to have that experience to enjoy this book, but I wanted that immersive factor. Something else that kind of bothered me was the world building. It just felt a little bit messy to me. It just felt like things kept being added chapter after chapter to kind of help out the plot. Like it felt like it was really convenient, and I just couldn't handle that. Maybe if I wasn't the pickiest person ever when it comes to world building, I wouldn't have minded it. But because of the fact that I am the pickiest person ever when it comes to world building, it kind of bothered me a little bit. Now, there were also a few things in this book that didn't set right with me, but I don't remember what those things are because of the fact that it's been so long since I've read this book. So I can't sit here and tell you what those things were because your boy took a million years to come and sit down and talk about these books. So just know that there were a few things that didn't set right with me, but I'm not sure what they were. I can't remember them. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time, I promise. Next up, we've arrived to August, in which I reread Looking for Alaska by John Green. I actually reread this in August because of the fact that it was the Booksplosion book of the month. This book is about this boy named Miles who decides that he is done playing it safe in life. He wants to spice things up, and how does he do that? He's like, boarding school would spice up my life. Let's go with that. And spice it up it does. At this school, Miles begins to intertwine his life with these new friends, and they teach him new things about life, and he ends up getting in all sorts of trouble with them. But things end up taking a turn when a tragedy hits a little too close to home. My thoughts on Looking for Alaska. I had a very different experience with this book the second time around. I can't say that I enjoyed it more. I feel like I enjoyed it less this second time around, but I also feel like I'm just in such a different headspace from when I originally read this book. Like, I read this book when I was in high school. It's been a minute since I've been in high school. So coming back to this book, I feel like it just didn't really sit with me well, but I still really appreciated this book. I still really enjoyed different aspects of it. I really feel like I went into this book with fresh eyes too, because I really didn't remember that much about it. Obviously, I remembered the big things that happened, like the big things, but there were so many other aspects about it that I did not remember. Regardless of that though, while I don't relate to the characters at this point in my life, I was still able to get easily swept away into their stories, just like with every John Green book. Like, I just fall into his characters. Something that this book has a strong presence of is this realness factor, and I feel like all of John Green's characters feel that way to me. They all feel real, they're all beautifully flawed, and you see them go through a lot of growth and experience self-discovery. I feel like specifically I really enjoyed following Miles's journey in this story because he does really go through a lot. He's gone from this kind of really sheltered life, and then he's dropped in this boarding school, and it's this very open and unguarded environment, and you really see how this environment has a big influence on him and how he changes throughout the story by being in this new place. So while I didn't necessarily love this book as much as I did the first time I read it, I still look at it with a lot of respect, and I still enjoyed my time reading it. So I think at this point in my life, I would give this book a 3.5 stars, I think. Yeah, we'll go with that. That's pretty solid. Finally, the last book that I'm going to be talking about today is, House of Salt and Sorrows. I read this book in September, and it's about this girl who feels like her family's been hit with this curse because her sisters keep dying, and she's just so done with having to deal with the grief that comes with that. I mean, that would be a pretty hard thing to deal with. So because of this, she decides that she is going to try and figure out the truth behind all these deaths. Is it a curse, or is somebody murdering her sisters?
And is she next on the list? Next!
Dun dun dun! My thoughts on House of Salt and Sorrows. I ended up really enjoying this book, and I kind of went into it not really knowing much, but the thing that I really liked about it and the thing that really stood out to me was the atmosphere of this book. It had this very like mystical, eerie, foggy, oceany vibe to it, and I loved it. I ate it right up. It was a buffet, and I just kept putting the food in my mouth. I think the thing that really kept me reading this story was the mystery thread that was running through it. It just kind of linked itself to me and pulled me through the book. I was so curious to kind of unravel this mystery that I just couldn't put the book down. I will say that one of my critiques for this book was the characters. The characters were just fine. Like, they were there. I just didn't care that much about them. Like, none of them like really stood out to me other than our main character. While our main character did stand out, her sisters kind of all blended in together and they just all felt the same. Like, I didn't really feel like any of them came across as different from each other, and that was kind of hard to read because I just was like, wait, which sister is this? Who are you again? Where did you come from? That was kind of the situation happening while reading this book, but thankfully that mystery aspect won me over and that kept me invested in the story, because otherwise I feel like I would have gotten pretty lost. While this book was kind of dark and it definitely has that eerie vibe to it, I never really felt like it was scary. I've seen reviews of people being like, this book is terrifying, and while that opinion is valid, I will say that if you've read a lot of scary books, yeah, this one's not gonna spook you. However, if you've not read many spooky books, this one might spook you. Overall, I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. So those are some books that I've read not so recently. I still have quite a few books that I've read and I haven't talked about yet, so I'm gonna be doing that hopefully soon. Also, I'm out of my reading slump, so hopefully I will be reading all of the things and bring you guys more reviews sooner rather than later. But thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you for waiting for me to do reviews again. Let me know down below in the comments if you guys have read any of these books and what your thoughts are on them. But if you haven't read any of these books, then let me know down below in the comments a book that you've read recently that really stood out to you. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with that new video. Bye-o! I feel like you guys might ask where this mug is from. It's from Redbubble, and I currently have a discount code, so use this discount code to get 15% off your order. Link down below in the description for my holiday gift guide. Go check it out.